Hi, I'm Warwick Slow, and welcome back to the Kiwi Advisor Network podcast. I'm joined today, very happy to have you here, Sue Mahaki of Sue Tierney Mortgages. You've got so much experience in the industry and you've been around for a while. I'd love to hear about your journey and how you got into advising and just maybe walk the audience through that.
Sure. How did I get into advising? I fell into it, but it was actually really easy. So my story starts back when I was at 10 years old, and my parents decided that they would take us back to Greece to visit my grandparents, whom I'd never met. And being one of 4 children and being the eldest, there wasn't an awful lot of money, and they were saving every cent they could to get us, we call it, home to Greece. So I can remember my parents sitting me down and saying, well, if you want spending money when you go back to Greece, you're going to have to earn it yourself. So it meant at 10 years old making the decision to give up netball, which I absolutely loved, and going and working and earning some money, or having no money and playing netball. So at 10-year-old, I made the sensible decision of earning money. And so I started working in the cafe at Christchurch Airport. And I stayed there until I was 27 years old. So I worked Saturday, Sunday in the cafe. And then when I left school at 18, I started working at Canterbury Savings Bank, and I was doing 2 jobs, 7 days a week. So that really did set me up for mortgage broking, because it is a 7-day-a-week, 24/7 business lifestyle. So it was a really interesting experience. But what was fantastic about it is that when I was working in the cafe on the weekends, I would be serving clients that then would come into the bank during the week. And it was the treatment of me that was absolutely, completely different. So as a cafe worker, I was just trash. I was the bottom of the barrel. They wouldn't speak nicely to me. It was, the whole attitude. And yet, when they walked into the bank during the week, I was, on the pedestal, and they would be so nice and grateful. And it was just the stark change between the 2 jobs has been something that it's never left me, and it reminds me when I'm meeting people and how I treat people as well. I think, a great lesson for us as an advisor is never be judgmental and never assume anything. So somebody that walks in and appears to not have very much or whatever, give them the time of day, because you never know what's behind the real story. So it was really, very good experience. So I started banking and absolutely loved it. But I left at a time when Westpac was buying out Trust Bank Canterbury, and I didn't want to be a salesperson. And it was also at a time in my life where I needed a change. I needed to get out of Christchurch. I needed to spread my wings, and I needed to grow up. So I was married at the time, which is where the Tierney comes from. And my husband and I made the decision for me to apply for a job at a mortgage broking firm in Auckland, which I was offered on the spot. And within a couple of weeks, we were out of the city and moving to Auckland. And it really has been for me one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. There are times when I think I should have gone on further, should have gone to Dubai and London, because that's certainly who I am. I love travel. But I think it's all about making the best of what you've got as well. And I arrived in Auckland in 1997, and really the market didn't really know what a mortgage broker was. There were certainly companies around at the time, and they'd done a great job, but it wasn't massive. So I think the Rob Tuckers of the world and Loan Plan, they were the companies in the day. But I started in this company that was starting up in Auckland. There was about 8 staff, and we were doing the hard yards, knocking on the doors and, selling the whole mortgage broking service. And it was just a wild ride. Yeah. We were all young. We were all the same age, in our 30s, and it was just so much fun.
And what was the industry like then compared to now?
Look, it was it was incredible. I think it was trusting, and you didn't abuse that trust. So, banks were trusting of us. Everybody loved each other. It was great relationships. It was the day where we would walk from our office down to the other end of our suburb where all the banks were. You would hand in a handwritten application, and by the time you tootled back to the office via the cafe, where you would have a coffee with your colleagues and discuss deals that you couldn't get together, and by the time you got back into your office, the loan was approved and sitting there. And I mean, today, jeepers, it's not even picked up for 10 days, is it? So
Yeah.
it was just crazy. Deals were signed off on the back of an envelope. We could ring up the bank manager and say, look, this is what I've got. This is the story of it. Is it a yes or a no? And you would have confidence in whatever they told you. And you would know if they said do this and you handed it in, you would know that it would be approved. It was completely different. Now, that also came with its challenges as well. And I look back on it with a lot of love, but there's also a slight little bit of sadness in the sense that it was so busy, it was out of control. And there would be times where clients would get upset because you just simply couldn't deliver the service levels that you wanted to set for yourself, because you'd pick up the phone, you'd get the information, you'd try and write up the loan application, you'd hang up and the phone would ring again. And you'd do what you could, and then the phone would ring again. And I can remember one day, putting my hands in my arms and just go, oh my God, I can't cope with this. And my manager at the time, who ran our business for us, laughing and saying, oh, look, Sue, what I'll do for you is I'll pull the phone lines out and you can just go door knocking for loans. And me laughing at the absurdity of this whole situation, that there was so many applications, it was out of control. But I also don't think it was great. So, when I compare then and now, I do love where the industry has headed, in the sense that we are a profession and we are being treated better as a result of that. Whereas in the day, you were just a mortgage broker and, you were a mortgage taker and it just wasn't as professional. So I really do love where it's headed. And I think for younger people, embrace that and run with it. A couple of bits of advice in there. And that's something that I've been able to live by and accept, and it's what's helped keep me going. And that's a Hebrew saying, but I think of it in English, and that is, this too shall pass. So the good times go, the bad times come, the bad times go, the good times come. And it will just keep going like that. So, if anyone's having a really difficult time out there, we just have to remember this too shall pass.
So what do you do when things are maybe like a little bit slower? How do you fill that void so that you're still productive?
I wish there was.
Yeah.
Void, because there's always, and it might not necessarily be a loan that needs processing. There is always something. So it might be that the website needs improving. It might be, one role at the moment is that I want to look at all of my documentation in terms of trail, and are my templates the best that they could be? I think that there is always room for improvement. And I don't care that I've been in the industry since 1984. I feel sure that there are things that young ones could teach me that, I can prove, whether it be technology or whatever. There is always room for improvement. So there is never spare time. On the occasion where I go, look, I'm tired today, I'll give myself a break.
Yeah, what time's that? Like 10 o'clock?
Yeah, no, not quite. So I would never have dreamed of doing this 15, 20 years ago, and that is finishing at 3 o'clock on a Friday. Wouldn't have dared. I'd have still been there at 7 o'clock on a Friday. But today, if I'm tired, it's okay as long as the work's done. As long as nobody is waiting for something, then I'll head home at 3 o'clock on a Friday.
How do you find that? How do you find that point? Because, even for me, I feel like there's always something to do.
Yeah.
Have to be like really, structured and brutal with myself. Like, you got to knock off at this time. Like, how do you do it when it's like your own business?
Warwick, I think the thing there to learn to accept is stop beating yourself up. And as a young one, I strived for perfection. And that's not fair to me, and it's definitely not fair to people around you who can't live to your level. So, I've been really, really fortunate over the years to have had amazing mentors. And one that I still continue with today, and his name is Dr. Fred Gross, and I'd love anybody to Google him, Grosse, Dr. Fred Gross. He is in his, I've got to pretend he's in his 60s, but actually he lives as though he's in his 60s, but he's somewhere in those 80s. An ex-New York rabbi.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, man, has he got some lessons to learn. And he is the most amazing teacher. And so one of the things that he has always taught us and I carry it around with me, is to have what we call our 10s. So every day when you're having a tough day, and I mean, we all have tough days, I still have days which really disappoint me where, I'm trying to be perfect and I haven't lived up to somebody's expectation, a client's expectation, and that really hurts. And what I have to do on those days is look at my list, and I've got a list of 500 things here, and all I need to do is flip through, and it could be do something absolutely crazy, jumping in puddles, something crazy that just makes you laugh. And that goes, really.
Like right there,
really,
that made me laugh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
There's something.
That's it. Well, all I need to do is take my dogs out for a walk and they're straight through the puddle. And it's just a gentle reminder of chill out, chill. We're a long time in that grave and we're a short time in this earth, and it really is about just enjoying those magic moments. So making sure that we have what we call a 10 out of a 10 day and having those 10s in there. So don't beat yourself up at 3 o'clock if you just go, because the other thing that Dr. Fred has taught us is, what is the point being in the office and being useless and annoying everybody else because you're tired? Just let it go.
Just get
go
out of there.
home. So if you're not going to be at work and be productive, get out and give everybody else a break. Because when you're busy working and you've got deals to get through and applications and people to satisfy, etc., and you've got that annoying fellow colleague that for whatever's going wrong comes and bothers you, that's just not great. Get out and leave the staff alone and go and do something that is productive.
And how's your team structured at the moment?
So we're down to just 3 of us, and I'm really happy with that. That's totally fine by me. I have Louise that works with me on insurances, and I have Bevan that works with me with mortgages, and I'm across both worlds. Bevan and I have worked together since 97, and I would have to be one of the luckiest advisors out there, I reckon. I've just got the most amazing relationship with him.
He's great. I really like Bev. Yeah.
He's just awesome. So Bevy is not he's not one of my staff. I wouldn't say a mate, that's not the right word, it's not fair. He is an equal. Despite me owning the business, he's an equal. And so if Bevan has something to say, I need to listen because it's really important and usually pretty wise. And the fabulous thing is that we started working together in 97 when we were both in different marriages. Both of us left those marriages and both of us went on to other relationships. So talk about watching someone grow, and we've grown differently with different experiences, but being able to use that. And I think that's another thing about working in teams. And one of the things that I love about your Facebook site.
The NZ Advisor community.
It is awesome that how you see something and therefore what your recommendations would be for a client would be different how I view it because of my experience and your experience. Neither of us are right or wrong. We just see things differently because we're taking different experiences into that meeting and into that application. So for me, it's really important to slow down and step back and actually listen to other people's point of view. And I'll use that in my appointments as well, is that I've had to learn to slow down because I'm pretty quick thinking.
Yeah, firing all cylinders.
Fast talking. And there are times, I'm constantly looking at people in the eye and monitoring and thinking, what are they not telling me? As in, do they not understand something because I'm speaking too fast or I'm at a different level? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to rephrase what I've just said? What can I see in their eyes that is the answer to what I'm missing?
Well, it says in the legislation you've got to ensure that the client understands the advice.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because people come in and they might have a different understanding of,
Absolutely.
financials. So how do you ensure
nodding is not acceptable. It's not at all. And what I do is look in their eyes.
Yeah.
And yep, looking in your eyes for it. And it's, can you see that they're with you, or can you see their eyes glazed over and they're going, I have no idea what she's saying to me, and they're going through the motions. And particularly if I take a few minutes to just shut up and listen, then in those moments of silence, if I leave the silence long enough and I'm no longer embarrassed by silence, it might give them a moment to admit that they don't understand.
Being comfortable in silence
Yeah,
is one of those
it's really
big life hacks. I struggle with it too whenever
Yep.
I'm explaining something.
Yep.
I find now with the team, if I'm explaining something, it might be a little bit complicated.
Yep.
Maybe I'm doing a bad job explaining it.
Yep.
Again, look at them.
Yep.
Are they just nodding along in acceptance? Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll say, oh, just explain it back to me in your own words.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
can be a good way of figuring out if they actually have processed it.
Yep. The other thing too, for me, a big thing is, and I know, people will laugh as, oh, good God, so you're using pen and paper. But I actually use pen and paper and I draw things out. And what I've found with doing that is that they're able to follow the pen and not, sometimes they can,
look, we still
sometimes
do
they
that.
can't. Yeah, is that follower. And I'll also, as scruffy as it might be, and I will make a comment about it, I'm sorry, this looks really unprofessional, but you've watched me draw it, so I'm hoping that might help remind you of what I was saying. So would you like copies of this? So it's also about being humble and not being embarrassed that this isn't a beautiful 72-paged document that they're never going to read.
Does it need to be?
As long as they've got something. And at the end of the day, it is really, really difficult. If somebody says they understand and they don't, and you haven't been able to work it out, what do? You know, always do your best.
Having been in a conference where they had representatives from the FMA speaking, they were saying that you can be really bold with the way you do your advice. It doesn't have to be, in fact, they don't want it to be a massive 70-page document.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can do a video, you can draw it out. Like the
Yeah.
important part is that the client understands it and
Yeah.
that it's evidenced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's it. So my drawings do that. And
Great.
on the whole, but as we know, some people are just better at sitting and listening. Some people are visual. So, I try and have that balance of both situations to do. I'm still learning.
yeah,
I don't get it
always
right.
learning.
I'm always learning. I don't get it right. But anyway, I always do my best. Which brings me to a little mantra in a book that I'd love to recommend to people. And again, I'm not perfect, but it's a tiny little book, really easy to read, by a guy called Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, I'm poorly pronouncing his
Don
name.
Miguel Ruiz.
Poorly. Let me do
great.
my best here. Don, and then his
Miguel
second name is Miguel, and third Ruiz. And the book is called The Four Agreements. And it has been really important for me over the years with mortgage broking because it's helped just remind me and help me, I guess, make me feel better when things aren't going perfectly as I would have thought. And that is, as long as I'm always doing my best. Don't beat me up. So the four agreements are always do your best. Don't make assumptions. So we think that somebody understands, but we can't assume they understand. Give them the drawing. Always do your best, but don't assume. And the other one is don't take anything personally. That is so hard in this industry.
It can be difficult.
It is a huge, huge challenge. And I think important for people to know as well is that I still do. And what I think another lesson from COVID has taught us that we've all got our own little baggage going on. With COVID, we went into our own worlds and we might be trying to interview somebody on Zoom. And if that kid in the background is annoying the parent and they're trying to concentrate on their mortgage, but, they've got a child that's really demanding, we've got to understand that everyone's got their own stories.
For me, it makes it more real. You see that.
Yeah.
You sort of realize, it's another person I'm dealing with that has their own hopes and dreams. It's not just,
Yeah.
it makes it less transactional, I feel.
Yeah. Look, I love it. I like Zoom and I don't mind people seeing my little what was my candle studio suddenly have to become my office at home because I was very clear. Home was home, work was work, and I was never mixing the two. And I guess getting older and wiser, that's okay now.
Are there any things you
okay.
do to signal the workday when you're at home? I know someone in the office here, they say they dress up and put shoes on. They're but
Yeah.
it's whatever can help you switch that mindset. Is there anything that you do?
When I'm at home working,
Yeah.
For me now it is having that separate office and trying to turn all of the sound off. So I won't have music playing. I won't do things that I would normally do as a normal a normal home day. What I did find, and this was just bad news, bad luck, is that my apartment was never set up to work from home. So I didn't have aircon.
Oh, yeah, that is tough.
And no amount of Dyson cooling conditions, because this is the other thing, is reminding that we're all real. 2 brand new pre-COVID puppies chewed through 2 power cords of Dysons, one while they were plugged in. So as a result is that, I was struggling and I was in a T-shirt working, and that's all I could do. Just you did what you had to survive, and again, I like my clients knowing I'm very real. Another little word of advice, and it's something that we did, that I did when I first started mortgage advising all those years ago, is I stopped wearing suits. And dress professionally, but dress real for your client. Be you. So if you as a female like to wear full-on makeup, wear full-on makeup. If you as a guy feel better wearing a suit and tie, well, go for it. Wear a suit and tie. You've got to do what is good for you and helps you, get through the working day. But for me, it was just toning it down just slightly. I couldn't wait to get out of that suit jacket and skirt. So I don't wear jackets. I wear nice coats and bits and pieces, but, I will wear what is comfortable for me.
Shows your personality too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then the other thing too is just, also appreciating is that your working day, in my crazy days, my working day started from 6:30 in the morning till 2 the next morning. And I would do that day after day after day.
How many cups of coffee?
Well, I didn't drink coffee. I certainly didn't drink wine.
Yeah.
Never been much of a drinker, and I'd have fallen asleep. But that was just because I didn't have a choice. If I didn't keep working, the deals were coming in and I couldn't keep up with it.
And
couldn't process fast enough.
Yeah, so, reviewing that, like how have you got it to a point where you're not staying up until 2 a.m.?
Technology. So it is fantastic. Trail, you guys know, I tell you often enough how much I love Trail. But it was another thing that another great mentor, Terry Carboon, until he sadly passed away, but Terry taught me to use your PC as your PA. So as much as I can, it's all diarised, it's all on computer, and we're using the computer as much as we can. I still have, and I think this is a point I want to make as well, is that everything needs to suit you. So I still have a daily diary, but this is one that I make up. So it's not a bought thing. And what I'm wanting people to do is make up your own. So I have a plan for the day. I have an actual for the day, but I've always got ongoing goals for today that are aside. So, I'll break it up into things. I'll have 10s and 25s. What's a 10 today? What is that thing that I'm going to look forward to today that's my little reward?
You always have those, don't you?
Yeah, you have to. And, I said to you right before we started, filming here, is that I'm in the middle of a renovation at the moment. So to keep me going last weekend was going and buying a little bunch of flowers for the coffee table at home. Nice. I'm camping in my bedroom at the moment. I don't have a kitchen. I don't have a laundry. And I've got half a bathroom. And I'm still living in the house. So to make that enjoyable, to make it fun, you need to have something in the day.
Marshmallows on the fire, that'll make it fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Go jumping in puddles.
Yeah.
What is it that you go, look, I can cope with this? And that again, why can I cope with living in like camping? I'm sure a gur or a yurts would be more comfortable than my bedroom at the moment. But it's the fact that I can see the end goal. Begin with the end in mind. And the end for me is a beautiful new home. And it's only 2 weeks away. So I can deal with it.
And so Sue, you came into the industry in 1997, right?
Yes.
Like ignoring the banking background. But at that point, that's like the real crest of the beginning of the internet. And you would have seen so many changes over that time. How do you keep up? And then where do you draw the line when you like just deciding to implement something, but is it just a fad or?
It's a really good question, and I'm lucky because I love change. And I know that there are people out there that don't and can't cope. And particularly, if you're an advisor with staff underneath you, I think it's really important to understand and appreciate that you'll have some staff that will run with whatever your idea is. Bevan loves his paper files. Bevan hates paper offices. We are laughing our heads off at the moment because his wife, we're not laughing that she has COVID, not at all, but he's therefore in lockdown at home with no printer.
Yeah.
So it's, yes, finally, finally, he is forced to be paperless this week. So it's really interesting. Now, how you cope with that is acknowledging that that's who he is. When I go into his office, mind my own business. Let him do what he needs to do to process it the way he does. I've never micromanaged staff, and I don't believe in it. If you need to, then you probably haven't got the right people.
You trust him.
Probably time to move on. But let him do what he needs to do. And if he has to have a paper file on the floor that he falls over so he doesn't forget, so be it. For me, I love change. So right from when I first started mortgage broking, how can I cope with it? Well, I'm grateful for where we are today. Because back then, if a bank did decline a loan, you had to get out the old twink. And you know how many changes you had to make on an application to twink it out and re-photocopy it to resend it down to another bank? What a pain.
Oh,
now, you guys, make it so easy. I click a button, hit the go button, download it and send it off with a new story. Well, the same story, but, new details. So much easier.
My goodness.
So for me, change, every little bit of change that I've dealt with in mortgage broking has always been an enhancement for the better, and I'm always excited by it. Fairly recently, I took up the challenge to buy cryptocurrency.
Oh, good on ya.
$200 worth.
So?
I really wasn't going to lose an awful lot of money here, but I started seeing a lot more clients disclose it in applications. And I realised then that I needed to be current and I needed to understand what they were thinking. So I was happy. I came up with a figure that I was happy to invest and lose and use it as a learning lesson. So I've not beat myself up about it. I think I put in $1,500 and I'll have to admit I've been too scared to open the apps. So of late haven't got a clue whether it's actually worth anything. Might be, it might not. That wasn't the point, is that by putting that money in, some people go off and they'll do some studies and they'll go and, pay for a conference. For me, that was just the same sort of money. It was teach me something, let me understand how you use these apps, let me understand how it works. Really good lesson because I invested $200 in Crow and I've never found it. So I lost it straight away. So what it taught me is that you think you've come to grips with something, but you need to put some caution in there as well. Thank goodness that I didn't get all smarmy and think, I understand this crypto, I'll go and invest, $10,000, because that would have been the $10,000 that I lost.
Gone.
Where's it gone? Yeah, so it was small enough to be cautious, but it was enough for money for me to get my clients.
Sometimes having
and understand them.
Having that skin in the game as well means that you maybe invest more time into researching it, finding out more about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, you're absolutely dead right. So for me, staying current and understanding people is really, really important, which means for me, I have to constantly keep, going and using mentors and studying and not giving up from there.
And you also do insurances as well.
Yes.
At what point of the business did you start doing them?
I had to sell, is the right word, insurances when I was banking. So that was part of it. So, insurances came hand in hand many, many years ago, and it was because it was a money spinner for the bank at the time. When I first started advising in 97, that stopped because I was working for a pure mortgage broker. But then they bought in insurances and, of course, did all the big training. But by that stage, I had a really good relationship with an insurance advisor, and I wasn't prepared to do insurances, and I referred everything to her. Now, there are regrets along the way, and there came a point where the insurance companies themselves put pressure on me to do insurance. And it also, as a pure mortgage advisor, sadly, I realised that at that point that we were just a transactional business and it really wasn't holistic. So there were several reasons to start mortgage broking, is that there wasn't a business. All you did was transactions, because without trail, you didn't have any ongoing long-term relationship that you could, not force, but, there wasn't the solid relationship. So insurances was one way of doing that, by having the two. But more importantly for me, The reason for starting insurances is because I became really nervous at people that didn't see it as really important part of the mortgage process. Important. And I've just been on claim. I'm only working part-time at the moment because I fractured my shoulder back in April. Painful.
You're mountain biking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to guess.
Yeah, of course. And I decided to hug a tree out at Woodhill. And it was one of those split-second things that, I'm riding along, having the ride of my life. I was in heaven. To the point that when I did crash and I couldn't get off the ground, some guys came up behind me and, helped me up and pick up the bike. And, I said to one of the guys, I can't believe I just did that. I was having the ride of my life. And he said, funny you should say that. I told my mates when you passed me. Did you see the smile on her face? That's having fun. Now, bringing that back to our industry and our business, it's really important you have fun in the day. So it's really important that you're getting up and you want to go to work, that you want to see those clients. If you don't, change. Get out of the industry. To me, there would be nothing worse and debilitating than being in an industry that you don't love.
So how have you stayed in love? Some people might have just lost it because they're going through a tough patch.
Yep.
I know you do things that make you happy, like jumping in puddles and things like that.
Yep.
But outside of that, like how do you find joy when things are like really tough?
I've got a great mate in Bevan.
Yep.
So it's really good to bounce off. And, he'll remind you. I haven't really needed to do this very often, but I know I could and I definitely would if need be. If the day was really bad for whatever reason and I couldn't clear my head over something, then I would leave the office and I'd go for a mountain bike ride. And so for me, it's not about having to work 9 to 5 to get the work done. And I guess I'm lucky because I didn't have children so that, time was more my own. If it meant that I had to leave work at 2 o'clock and go for a bike ride and then come back and start work again at 7 o'clock, well, that's what I would do. So in other words, adapt to do what you need to do to make it work for you. I've adapted my diary. So, my own, produce my own diary. I adapt my work. So when we started doing, working from home with COVID, I changed my hours slightly and I got up at 6 and I was at my desk at 6 o'clock and I would work from 6 till 9. And in those 3 hours, boy, did I get more work done. Then I would take my dogs for a walk. They needed walking. So what it meant is that I knew my head was clear because I knew that things that needed to be moving were already moving at the bank. Then I would go for the walk.
You're not stressing when you come back.
Yeah, that's it. Wasn't stressed.
Yeah.
So I just changed my working day to suit my needs at the time.
Yeah, I think I do a similar thing. Mm-hmm. I actually get the dog walking done before work.
Yeah.
So that I can just, I know that part's done because she's still a puppy and very needy. So she's had her energy released. I can just focus for a bit. You've obviously got a large book of clients. Do you sort of vet them when they come through or do you pick who you work with now?
My philosophy has always been, always try and help everybody respectfully. So it might be that a client will phone up and they might not have enough deposit. I'll still give them the time of day because I think that it's important that, one, we don't put them off. We don't know their situation. We don't know their psyche. And if you're negative and you're mean with your advice and you're not caring, that person might never get a house because of your comments. So I'm really respectful of the fact that they might not be what I would normally want as the perfect client or the ideal or whatever, but be respectful and teach them.
Yeah, I mean that, and for people who come to you and they're just like, hey, what rate's going to get through you? Like, do you convert them around and kind of get them onto showing you?
That's not who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, go to the guy up the road who just wants a deal. So you get a little bit.
But would you try and turn them? Or
No, you teach them. So I'll just try, that's the sort of example where I'll go, I'll explain, hey guys, the classic is it's not about your interest rate, but it's how much interest you pay over the years. And, what's really, really important for you to remind yourself so you don't beat yourself up is sometimes you'll win and sometimes you'll lose. So You might get the best rate today at every bank because it's 0.01% better. But when it matures, it might be maturing when rates have risen.
Right, yeah.
You didn't get the best
probably
rate.
Found that.
Yeah, you could have got it 3 months earlier, so it's all about what's best. Let's focus on how do I save you the most amount of interest over the years. Yeah, that's just all about wording, isn't it?
And how does the education piece work for you? You're obviously really busy.
Mm-hmm.
People are calling you up. Maybe they're inquiring through the website. Do you allocate like really specific blocks of time throughout the day, or do you call them kind of ad hoc, or how does that work?
It's a great question, and something if people aren't doing it, I'd love to recommend it. I use software called Calendly.
Yep.
And it's in all of my emails, and clients can book a meeting with me whenever they want, and they know that. So what I do is that I'll look at my calendar and I'll block out times to process things. If I can get in quick, if somebody books in and says that they want a half-hour appointment and I know it's an application, I know half hour's not enough. So I'll get in and book out another half hour afterwards to process, etc. I also, in every single day, have times automatically blocked out, like I won't see a client from 9 till 9:30 because that's Bevan and my time to discuss.
I know.
No, not dog walking time. Oh, that's when it's COVID time.
Oh,
yeah. But it's, or if it was COVID, then when I'm walking, I'd be talking to Bevan. But those are the times where it's really important that he and I get to communicate and make sure that everything's on the go. So, so there's times in my diary that are just blocked out for the other stuff that just has to be done. Another lesson I learned the hard way years ago is that I don't take new client appointments on a Friday, because Fridays are settlement days. And if something's going to go wrong, it goes wrong on a Friday, you better be available. So I won't commit to a mortgage appointment on a Friday. That doesn't mean to say that I don't have conversations with clients. So, if I need to ring up and say, hey, I've got your loan approved, that's exactly what I'll do. But I won't allow somebody to book a new meeting appointment on a Friday.
Okay, just block it out.
Sense?
Yeah, fairly easy.
Whole day.
Yeah.
Yep. Real
sort of
easy.
leaving a little bit of spare time in your back pocket.
Yeah, just in case. That's it. And, fortunately, the majority of time it's not needed. But there's always admin in this role, and Friday's a good day to do it.
Yeah, man, you must have some great stories from deals that that you've completed over the years, or
it's just fascinating. I'm stumbling with my words because there have been so many fascinating ones, even when I was banking. So I had a client back in the day banking with the foulest mouth on her, really, really bad mouth. Absolute potty. And she was also grumpy and very difficult to deal with. And she was from one of New Zealand's wealthiest families. And whenever she came into the branch, everybody would run a mile and yell out to me to go and serve her. Because nobody would want to deal with her. I loved her. I really enjoyed her character, and I used to think, gosh, her family's wealthy, because I came from a really poor background where no food in the cupboard, and it's just the way it was. So I used to think, how can I learn from her? What can she teach me? And she was the one to teach me about rental properties. She had rental properties and she lived off its income, and she lived off her family money income. So it was really good lessons of, building the base.
Uses her swear jar as a savings jar.
Yeah, well, her swear jar was actually, one day she came
Did she have one?
She came into the branch and she said, so my mother's cleaner is stealing from her. Have you got a safety deposit box? Can you please store these in it? And I kid you not, she handed over two, what do you call them, like petty cash tins full of jewellery. I couldn't lift them. We didn't have a safety deposit box. So I just had to keep them down at my feet for the whole day until she came back to collect them. It's oh my God. My bosses, no bank manager would allow you to do that today, but that was what you did in the day.
I love that.
Would never in my wildest dreams have ever considered opening it up and touching any of it.
It was probably a test.
Well, it might have been. It could have been all plastic for all I know. But, that I think when you're in a privileged situation like that, which you are with clients' information, really respect it and really look after it. And, Great stories.
Oh, yeah, certainly front of mind now, but oh my goodness, I was imagining.
And also the interest in clients, it's, even as a mortgage advisor, and I'm sure every other advisor would have the same sort of stories, is that, people that walk into your office, one guy that never wears shoes and he wanders around Auckland without shoes and he is so wealthy it's not funny. You can't judge.
You just never know.
Just find fascination in these stories and learn from it. And think, well, what can you take away from it? What can I learn from this experience? Which again brings me to some pretty rough experiences that I've had over the years. And, something that I would want young ones to remember today is, look, we all have really bad experiences. Bad shit happens every day to good people. It's really sad. People get cancer every day. That's just nasty stuff that you don't want to wish upon anybody. If it happens to you, it's how you deal with it and, what you do with that information and how you survive it. And I've survived plenty of stories. There's plenty in the media that's pretty nasty and also inaccurate. And there's plenty that I've read and thought, gosh, if I couldn't see my face there, I didn't know that story was about me. The stories just are wild. So what I've done is learn that that's their story, it's not my baggage. And what's really important for me is that I can sleep at night, which is why, it's important that I look after my clients as well as I can. Can I sleep at night? Do I think that I'm doing the right thing by people? And how can I learn from this? And I think it's the challenges that I've had over the years that has helped me be a better broker. So that when somebody comes to my office and they may have very little in assets and they may be in their late 40s and early 50s, I can understand and have empathy and I will do my best. And I'm really proud of some of the stories that, of people that I've helped as a result. There's nothing nicer than somebody walking out of your office and you still hearing them say, oh God, I feel so relieved after speaking with her. It's so empowering to go on and help.
Just being friendly and nice to people, it's free,
Absolutely. Why do we have to be asses? We don't, just be kind. Oh, I hate those words.
I have to say though, the industry as a whole, having been in it now for 2.5 years, very friendly.
It's better.
I would say, yeah. And even we've had somebody new start with us and her experience was previously working in another industry, which I won't name. She's like, mortgage advisors and insurance advisors are so nice.
It's awesome.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. It wasn't always like that. Certainly in the early days, it was pretty cutthroat. And like I say, I've got some horrid stories and I think, well, just learn from them. It's a real shame. People being fearful of not getting that business. Oh, well, so if you go on television, then we may as well shut our offices because, there'll be no business for us. And it's just like, are you crazy? Every day somebody divorces and there's a need to sell a house. Every day somebody dies and there's a need to sell a house. Every day somebody gets a better pay rise and there's a need to get a better house. They have babies.
Things change.
So will there be more mortgages tomorrow? Of course there will. Unless the world blows up, of course there will.
People stop needing to live in homes.
Yeah, absolutely. We all need a roof over our head. So be respectful and just know tomorrow will come and it'll be a different story. So I don't get to this stage in my life being saddened by what I've gone through. I thought, wow, they were crazy times. Some of the days when we would, in our darkest moments, you'd turn on the lights in the office and think, well, it can't get any crazier today, not like yesterday, and it would get worse. And you think, man, this is just nuts what's going on out there. But we lived through it, we fought the battles and we won the battles, which means we actually won the war, and that's what's really important. Don't worry about the battles, win the war.
So
I won the war.
Yeah.
And I will fight the war for my clients. And, the banks know that. I'll always do my best. I will always fight. I don't like unfairness.
You're in the trenches. I think that resonates with people.
Yeah, I do not like anything that's unfair. I don't like bullies. And I'm not saying banks are bully. They're not at all. I understand where the banks are coming from today. But there is a power imbalance with the banks and clients. part of it today is our job is to help people understand the law and that it's not the banks being a bully. And also part of our job today, and I've got better at it over the years, is really appreciating the bank staff. And I feel for them at the moment. I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, they're under the cosh.
Oh, it's just awful. I think that we're in a far better seat being the mortgage advisor. But it's our job looking after the client and teaching them what the poor staff member's going through.
Empathy.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that.
Yeah. Oh, I hate it when I hear that they're on leave because they're struggling with mental health. That's not nice. And I think it's just our job to make their jobs easier as well.
Yeah, it always just comes back to respect and kindness. And so I've found your journey. It's like very inspiring and hearing like little things. Like I know it sounds silly, but next time I'm having a tough day, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go
jump in a puddle.
Jump in a bloody puddle. So I'll think of you when I'm doing it.
Have you got children?
No, I've got a little puppy.
Yeah, take the puppy through the puddle.
Out.
Yeah.
She loves that anyway. But
cool.
It's been an absolute pleasure just catching up with you, hearing your story. I found it really inspiring.
Great.
Just running through. So thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Look forward to catching up soon. Thanks
for
for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next week. Well, next fortnight. It's fortnightly, weekly. Fortnightly. We'll see you then. Thanks so much for listening to the Kiwi Advisor Network podcast. Just a friendly reminder, good on you, because this counts towards your CPD hours. Remember, you can catch all the previous episodes on YouTube. We've also got them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions for future episodes or any guests that you'd love to see me interview, make sure you email me at warwick@gettrail.com. That's WARWICK@gettrail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.